Welcome to this overview of Drive Train Analyser from Saltbush Software. My name is Ashley Betts and I'll be walking you through the key features of the application as of version 1.1. We'll begin the overview with a quick rundown of how you can build up your own configurations and how these can be shared via email. Once we have the basics of how you can configure items in DTA, we'll then take a quick tour of the analysis screen and review its key features. So without further ado, let's dive into building up a road assembly that we can use for analysis. Okay, so let's go ahead and kick off DTA. So when you first start DTA, it opens on the iPad. It opens up to the analysis screen, and here you can see it's loaded the Triumph Thruxton configuration. This is the last configuration that I was using. If you haven't used a configuration before, it picks up the first configuration in the list. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to send the Triumph Thruxton configuration via email so that we essentially keep a copy of it for safekeeping. Then we're actually going to remove the Triumph Thruxton configuration and then go about re-entering all the configuration items to build it back up again to give us an example of how to go through and configure up a road assembly and the various bits that sit below it. Okay, just on concepts and things like that, the general idea is a drivetrain assembly is gearbox and final drives and primary drives. Then we have a powertrain assembly, which is the drivetrain assembly plus a power plant. And then there's a road assembly. The road assembly is everything that can actually make it operate on the road. So the road assembly is a powertrain assembly plus a wheel. Okay, if that doesn't make sense, it's no big deal. I'm sure you'll pick it up as we go through and configure the items up. Okay, so to send the configuration item off via email, we touch the configure items button, and towards the bottom of the complete assemblies you can see the Triumph Thruxton configuration. Okay, to send that off via email, we touch and hold it for greater than 1 second, and you'll see the export via email button pop up. Okay, so let's send that off. Okay. And we'll send that back off to ourselves, and you can see just below the download on App Store graphic, there's a file which is called Triumph Thruxton Road Assembly DTA CD. The name's been truncated in the actual email, but that is actually the configuration item that is about to be sent off, and that's what we'll use to import the item at the end of the overview. Okay, so I'll send that off. Now what we're going to do is we're actually going to delete that item out of the configuration database. So to do that, we swipe the row that we wish to get rid of from left to right, and the delete button pops up. So delete that. Okay, so that's now gone. Okay, there's a lot of configuration items that come in with that actually come with the application. There's no need to keep these. If they get in your way, then by all means just go through and delete them. They're there more for illustration to show how you actually might go ahead and use the application, but there's no need to keep them. If you do delete them and possibly want them back later, you could email DTA at saltbushsoftware.com, and I can send you all the items again. Okay, so the first step that we'll do is we'll actually create a tyre. So the process for adding items is very similar for each type of item. So here you can see the section which is section tyres section, and next to that you can see a blue plus sign. So to add an item, you touch the blue plus sign, and it'll add a row to the bottom of the list. Give it a name. I'm going to call all of the items in here Thruxton example. Okay, and once you've entered the name, you go to the details screen by touching the red plus sign. Okay, and here you can see the create tyre specification screen. A lot of items on this screen. The only ones that are necessary are the ones that we need to calculate the circumference of the wheel. So here we would actually need to supply section width, aspect ratio and rim diameter. The other items there are purely for to keep track of the items for yourself. DTA doesn't use them in any way other than stores them. Possibly later we might do something around speed rating, so if the configuration operates or shows an operation speed of greater than the speed rating, that an alert might pop up, but yes, that'll be a future version. It's not available in the current version. Okay, so the section width for a standard Thruxton tyre is 130mm, the aspect ratio is 80%, and the rim diameter is 17. Okay, so I'm not going to fill in the rest of it, we're not particularly interested, so that'll do for us. So the way that you actually add an item to the configuration list is actually touch the back button. Well, in this case here, it's actually the button that has components on it. Okay, so that will actually go ahead and add it. If you wish to discard it, you just touch off of the create tyre specification screen, so you're about to touch more over towards the speed dial or similar. But we're going to go ahead and add this, so touch the component button, and you can see down the bottom it's actually added the Thruxton example. So there it is. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add the final drive. So here we're going to add the final drive. Same man again. Thruxton. Example. Touch the plus key. And actually this is actually on gears. Just a point here, the create final drive, create primary drive, and the same for the creating the gears and transmissions will always open up to this screen, and as you can see you've got the option to create gears, sprockets, pulleys or ratio. Gears and sprockets assume that you know the teeth count of the gears or sprockets. Pulleys assumes that you know the diameter of the pulleys. Ratio assumes that you know nothing more than the ratio. So, which is quite often what you get in specs for gear, transmissions, etc. So, for example, if you had a drive gear of 10 teeth and a driven gear of 20 teeth, then the ratio would actually be 2 to 1, and you just had a 2-0 in the ratio field. Okay, well we're actually entering sprockets. It really doesn't matter if you use sprockets or gears, the calculations are exactly the same, but just to make it look like a motorbike, we'll use sprockets in this case. Okay, so the standard Thruxton transmission sprocket is 18, and the rear sprocket is 43, and the same here again to add the item to the component database. We just touch the back key, which has currently got components on it. Okay, and as you can see, that's added the Thruxton example final drive. The next thing we're going to do is actually add the transmission. Okay. Same thing again, we'll call it Thruxton example. Okay, touch the red plus button, and okay, this is where we begin the process of adding the gears. So for the Thruxton, I actually know the teeth count for all the gears, so I'm going to go ahead and add them as a teeth count. So Similar sort of process as adding all the items so far. Touch the blue one to create a new item, touch the red plus button to get to the details. Gears are always called Gear 1, Gear 2, Gear 3, etc. So you don't get a choice of names for these ones. Okay, touch the positive, the red plus sign. And okay, for first gear we have 15, 41. Okay, go back. I'm going to quickly go through these, but similar sort of process. Touch the blue plus button, touch the red plus button, and enter the details. So second gear is 19, 37. Back, touch plus, touch the red. Okay, 22, 34. Back, plus, plus. 24, 51, plus, plus, and last one is 27, 29. Okay, there you go, we've created the Thruxton transmission. Okay, and just get back and make sure it's there. You can see now that we've got the details there, it just puts a little description, of how many teeth and the actual ratio for the various gears. Okay, that looks about right. I don't think I made any mistakes. Okay, the next thing for a motorbike is the primary drive. Quite often if you're doing a car or something similar, you obviously won't have a primary drive, as usually clutch. You go direct through your clutch, your engine spins at the same speed as the input shaft of the transmission. Okay, but on a bike, we've got the primary drive. So I'll just call this Thruxton example again. Touch the red plus button, and I'm going to add 62 108. Okay, same process as before, touch the back button. And now we've got all the bits and pieces that we need to create a road assembly, which is the thing that we can actually analyse. Okay, so let's go ahead and actually do that. So let's create a complete assembly. I'll call it Thruxton example once again. Touch the red plus button. Now, the first thing that we're going to add is a power plant. There's really not much in the power plant at this stage. It's just primarily sets the dials, the RPM dials, min and max fields. So I'll just go into here and we'll make the min RPM 1000 and the max RPM, I think it's about 7,500 from memory. Okay, so that's added that. Now, what we can actually do here, even though we've gone through and created all these different items, the tyre, final drive, transmission and primary drive, you can actually create them directly in the road assembly. So when you create them individually, essentially what they become are reusable components, so that you can go and select them off the shelf and put them in other road assemblies. If you don't think you'll reuse the items, you don't need to add them as individual pieces. You can actually just add them directly into the power plant. So I'll just show you. To add a primary drive here, you touch the blue plus button and touch the red plus button again. This is where you would actually enter the item if you want. But if you actually want to go and get an existing item, which we've already created, you touch the little square with a little arrow pointing out towards the right on the right hand top side of the create primary drive screen, and that will actually take you off to a list of existing ones, and you can just select one of the ones that you've created before. So as you can see, it populates it straight away. Okay, so that makes it nice and easy. Transmission we've already created, so we'll do the same sort of thing for this. We'll just go and find the transmission. Where is it? Thruxton example. See, it's populated it. Create final drive. Find our final drive. All the way down the bottom after all the 9-inch diffs. Okay, and go and find our tyre. And Thruxton example. And once we've done that, hit the components to the back to go back, and you'll see we now have our Thruxton example. We've recreated the Thruxton item that we originally deleted. It's got a slightly different name now. It's Thruxton example rather than Triumph Thruxton. And what we'll do next is we'll actually use this configuration item in the analysis screen. Okay, now that we've created the Thruxton example configuration, we can go ahead and load it into the analysis screen and do some basic analysis on it. Okay, as you can see on the analysis screen, we still have the Triumph Thruxton configuration, which we deleted earlier. The reason why it's still there is that the analysis screen actually takes a copy of the configuration item. It actually doesn't have a direct reference to it, so that's so that when you modify things on the analysis screen, they don't modify the configuration items, so they don't dirty them. You can think of the configuration items as templates. Okay, so we'll go ahead and load the new item that we created, Thruxton example, second from the bottom. Okay, so we've now loaded that, and you can see that some of the items on the screen have a direct association to the values that we entered. As an example, the min on the RPM dial is the idle RPM that we set for the power plant. The max is 7,500, which is the maximum we set for the power plant. We've got 5 gears to select from, which is how many gears we created in the transmission. The final drive has got 43 teeth over 18 teeth, which is what we configured in the final drive. And the wheel specification is the same as what we configured. It's being directly used by the analysis screen. Okay, so we can either drive speed from RPM or RPM from speed. So as an example, we can put our finger on the RPM dial and drag it around. You can also see the current value at the end of the needle, and you can see the current value changing down below the dial as well. Or if you want to set a specific value directly, you can enter the current value directly, such as and it'll update everything. You can also, as I mentioned, drive RPM from speed, so you can grab the speed dial and move that around as well. And likewise, you can enter a value directly into the current speed. The speed is actually limited to the RPM, so it can't go past that. Okay, so we'll just take it up to red line. You can drop down gears. When you drop down gears, it'll actually reduce the road speed. And this is not what would happen in reality. You'd actually either blow the engine or lock the back wheel. Regardless, that's how it currently works. So you can drop back the gears. There we are in first gear on the red line, which is 77 k's for this configuration. We can then also take it back up. Going back up is slightly different, because essentially what it's doing here is, as the RPM is likely to drop, it holds the road speed at a constant as far as it can. That is, until it hits its minimum RPM. So the idea is behind that is the road speed really can't change too quickly, so the RPM must change. Okay. So that's the gears. You can also change from kilometers per hour to mile per hour if you want. If you can see there that it's actually changed the speed dial to mile per hour, and you can change it back to kilometre per hour. You can edit the final drive, and let's say we just want to see what it might do if we move up to 19 tooth sprocket on the front. Okay, you just either tap the edit button or tap anywhere on the screen. It'll actually take that value in. Just confirm it by looking at it. So now you can go back and you can see maximum speed has increased slightly. You can edit the wheel specification. It's similar to how we entered the original configuration, and you can also change the wheel squish, which is how much the wheel is compressed, or if you put a negative value in, how much it's expanded for centrifugal force. So let's just say we had minus 10. That'll actually increase the speed slightly because the wheel got a little bit bigger. So that's the general gist of it. That's the analysis screen in a nutshell. I guess the last thing to show is actually making sure we can import the original Triumph Thruxton configuration that we deleted. So to do that, we'll just go to our email, which has been sent to us, and you can see you can actually load the configuration item into DTA. It'll ask you whether you actually want to import it, and gives you a brief description of what it is. And we do want to load this, so we load that. And in theory, yep, there it is, right at the bottom. We've re-imported the original one that we have. So there you go. That's DTA in a nutshell. I think that went a little bit longer than what I expected, but hopefully it's been useful to everyone, and yeah, I look forward to your feedback and any issues you've got with the application. So if you have features that you'd like to request, please send them to dta@saltbushsoftware.com. And if you have any issues or support related matters, please send that to support@saltbushsoftware.com. Thank you for your time, and I'll talk to you later.